I'm Captain Untamed Oracle. If you're watching me, that means you're a part of my community. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for being devoted to this journey. We're going to talk about trauma bonds and the physiological aspect of the cage that it creates in the hips that's tied to the nervous system. And this is something that you carry in your body. So the bond isn't just physiological, it's bilateral, meaning it's built on the two pillars of your relational blueprint that's stored separately in your hips. So breaking up doesn't mean it's over. So we're going to go through a somatic map of a trauma bond. This is something no one else ever told me. So the left hip is the hook of attachment and mother wounds. It holds the emotional secrets. This is where you store, I cannot leave because blank. I will be abandoned. I will be unloved. I will be shattered. It's the primordial, often feminine coded attachment wound because the left side is feminine. It holds the grief, enmeshment, the loss of self, and the addiction to familiar pain that feels like love but isn't. Now, this is the narrative behind the tightness that you may feel. It's whispering to you, you're safer if you stay. You're used to suffering. Leaving will not be good for you. You won't be able to survive. And so this is when you bring in the goddesses. This energy is required to sever the umbilical cord of unhealthy attachment. So Kali cuts away what is rotting. Lilith walks away from the garden that demanded her submission. This is how you take your power back, simply by knowing this. The right hip is the hip of captivity and father wounds authority issues. The emotional secret it holds is, where do I store energy that feels like I'm trapped, controlled, and powerless? It is the masculine coded energy of entrapment, domination, and our violated boundaries is in this hip. The rage, the resentment, and the suppression, the difficulty expressing our anger, that's all in this hip, okay? And it's shouting to you, if it ever aches, that my power has been stolen and I have never been heard. The key goddess for this hip that I've found is Sekhmet. This is the righteous rage, the fierce protective energy that burns the cage to the ground and reclaims sovereign untamed power. So a trauma bond is more like a spell. It convinces you that your captivity is the only way for you to have connection. And breaking it requires more than willpower and affirmations. It requires an anatomical revolt. So I'm going to teach you how to use your body to reposition your energy. The left side knows that it's whole without the wound, and the right side stands in uncompromising sovereignty once you exercise this stored energy from your tissues. As the hips are being released, you don't just get over someone, but you architecturally dismantle the cage that was created, and you're able to walk out on legs because your legs represent forward motion. You're able to move forward and feel more liberated. No one ever told me this. I heard about trauma bonds. I'm sure you did as well. But no one ever told me, well, where are those energy cords stored inside of my body? And what can I do about it? No one ever told me that the father wound that I had throughout my life from my father not being in my life was attached to the right hip, and the mother wound was attached to the left hip. So, if you notice, a lot of times when we get older, maybe you had a grandma or aunt or something, they get older and they start to have hip issues or even break their hips. This is a common thing. When you go through menopause, a lot of us lose strength in our hips and start to have osteoporosis in the hips. It's not just the menopause. See, my goal is to go past the physical stuff. I want to get into the energetics. I want to get into the quantum information, the data, and the way it affects the structure of the body. Once I put these things together, and I've spent the last 2.5 years working with a myofascial release expert. When I tell you stuff from past relationships had been stored in my hips. As we were working on my hips, sometimes I would sob like a baby and I didn't know why. The things that went wrong in my relationship with my mother, with my daddy, with my exes, it was all just sitting in here. It is so amazing to me that our body is like a data center and it holds the information that we don't process. So I'm going to show you some of the somatic exercises that I've been using to exercise this energy from my hips. After the very first time, you should usually know that a difference is happening. Maybe you can't put words to it. If you can, journal about it. But you're going to notice a difference. You're going to notice that something is shifting in you. If you do that the second day, the third day, the fourth day, if the fifth day come and shit start happening and you can't do it and you're like, you know what? No, Camson already shared her testimony with me. And I will never get to experience these things unless I am devoted to this. So even though all this is happening, and even though I've had to rework my entire day because of blank, 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 whatever's happening, I'm going to make sure that when I finally get to my bed, I'm going to spend 5 or 10 minutes working on my hips because I know I've been in trauma bonds. And in my guidebook on energetic fuckery, I talk about trauma bonds. And I talk about how feeling like you have to walk lightly, not be too loud, not be seen, not be expressive, not tell people when you're angry or when they've done something that crossed the boundary or hurt you. You try not to rock the boat. You try not to bring conflict. But when you do that, resentment is created. And resentment is the pain of not being heard once it sits for too long, and it's like milk and it spoils and it gets lumpy and it gets toxic, and all type of entities, bacteria physically, but parasites energetically start to harbor within your body. So don't look at emotions as just emotions. Emotions are also a food source for parasitic entities. And if you have a lot of that in your body, then these parasites are going to constantly be attracted to you. And they will manipulate the way that you perceive yourself. They will manipulate the way that you perceive others. And your ego will not feel safe. Your ego will feel like it has to be on guard. Because guess what? The memory is in the tissues. Issues are stored in the tissues. I do not care what nobody else is saying and what nobody else told you. I'm telling you from experience that this is what happens. So if you can do this and get to day 6, make it to day 7. I want you to be, you stubborn. If you watch it, mean you're stubborn, okay? I attract people who do have this tenacity about them. And maybe you've been stubborn in ways where you were in trauma bonds, knew they were trauma bonds, and didn't walk away. That's okay too. Hell, you might feel like you're in a trauma bond right now. Nobody else is saying, well, maybe you can use this as a catalyst for your healing journey. Seem like everybody is saying, get out the relationship. You need to leave. Hurry up and get out of there. I won't be taking this. I'm not dealing with that. I need a man who goes sprinkle. Just bring me some money and there will be no emotional connection between us. That might work for some people, but that's not going to work for everybody. Some of us are here to experience these things so that we become the alchemists we are here to be. I truly believe that every relationship has some form of dysfunction, but if you are an alchemist, you're going to make that shit work for you. And you will come out the other side of that relationship a better version of yourself. Now, let me tell you this. Once I connected the emotions to certain body parts, once I connected the story that created the tension in these body parts, because you might be sitting here thinking, my hips fine. I ain't never had no problems with my hips. Trust and believe you do these simple things and your hips are going to start to talk to you in the form of sensations. But when I started to work with the goddesses And they started to come and get me in my dreams and do healing ceremonies over me and teach me. And I started to see that they were not just like, they weren't just eradicated. No, they allowed what happened to happen, and they hid their knowledge and their wisdom and their power inside the body of women. And these hips are more than just hips. And though I have only spoken about Kali and Sekhmet for the hips because of the connection to anger, rage, and the connection to attachments and codependency and fawning, living in survival mode, when I made that connection, it's something that no one else had never said. And so when I work with them, when I invoke them, when I call them for help, when I ask them to show themselves to me, to teach me, to help reprogram my mind to be different, to help me perceive myself differently, to help me speak up. And so now, if I call them up, I've learned their corresponding colors, the corresponding offerings. And so when I drink and eat these things, I acknowledge their energy into my body. This is true embodiment. So many people are teaching about goddesses as if this is some entity that you are to worship. No, they are fragments of frequency, of consciousness that we can tap into. So now that I've explained this to you, as you're doing this work, know that if you are open and receptive, you can also ask them to start coming to you and help you on your journey. And you're going to hear a different voice inside of your mind. You're going to hear things like, do not let them continue to talk to you this way and you not say anything. And this is what you're going to say. And if you don't know what come after that, in the Dark Goddess Guide for Ending Energetic Fuckery, I give you specific things to say to people that came from the goddesses. And the impact that it has, it's profound. So let's get into the somatic part, because I don't want to make this too long, because my purpose was to keep this simple, because we short on time. Time is speeding up, right? We got things to do, dreams to build, responsibility to take care of. I get it. So let's ease on into the practice. All you need is you and your bed. If you want to use a yoga mat, that's fine. But I do it on my bed because it's just easier. I don't have to go and find my yoga mat. I don't have to clean it off. I don't have to dust it off. I don't have to roll it back up. I don't have to do any of that. Soft life, laziness is a luxury, okay? And we ain't always got to be doing the extra. Sometimes it's the practical, simple things that bring the most benefit. And you're more likely to do this every day if it is super simple and doesn't require a lot of effort, energy, and time. So let's get into it.